they're not in the hangout, you put me in the hangout there. So quality entertainment. Take a pause. Take a pause.
I just learned strings the hard way. Like, what rules did you give them?
No numerables.
No what?
Numerables.
No numeral.
Just do things using loops.
And like, don't just call the method that you're rewriting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But like, okay. Right.
Testing.
Oh.
Okay, can everyone hear me okay? So I'm going to apologize in advance. There is a bit of a delay, so when you ask questions on Slack, I may not see them for a couple seconds. So questions about, you can follow along. We're just going to be going over the homework that we gave you yesterday, the strings and integers challenges. So it is 9:35, and let's begin. So let me bring up the strings and integers, and we're going to start with just strings. If you have the strings first and last in the following variables, use the concatenation technique to do the following. So over here, we're going to set our first variable to be first, last. And the first question is to output the string first, last. And also feel free to ask questions in Slack as we go along. I do have it up on my second screen so I can see them when you ask. So we want it to do first, last. And what we can do is that we use this technique called string concatenation. And
when we get started, go ahead and mute yourself. Just click on the microphone
over here.
probably the bottom of the hangout, and then I'm going to have people share their screen.
So what we have is that
Your solution.
because the first variable, the first is stored in F, and last is stored in L, what we can do is that we can just use the symbol here, plus, and we can put to that, and we'll just print it out without any spaces, just print them out one after the other. Now, the next question is asks us to kind of reverse that, so we last first. So we do puts L plus F. And we run that. And see if it's last. So we can see that we can kind of chain things along using the plus. But what if we want to, as we see number 3 here, have a space between first and last? We're storing first and last in variables, but we can also include a string.
All right.
So we have here that there's a couple of ways we can do this. We're getting a lot of feedback. Let me turn down the volume a little bit.
Well, I'm going to get started, and if for whatever reason people can't get in, we'll go to on air, and I'll invite whoever wants to draw a solution.
Hold on a second as I adjust this.
So a little bit on Super Fizz Buzz. Who thinks they've got a clever solution to Super Fizz Buzz and they want to share it?
Not like we're doing like a call
So
today.
you do a share your screen. Mine's like in a little menu.
Testing.
Top right.
1, 2. Is this any better?
You finding it?
Okay, so I've changed the microphone out, so this should be a little better. So we were saying that we want to output first and last with a space between them.
Adam, or whatever.
So there's a couple ways we can do this. Kind of the simplest way we can think of doing this is put F plus empty string plus L. Puts, oops.
Yeah, you're a little,
And we can see that we've outputted first and last with a space in between them. We can do that because we're just taking strings, because F is a string, this empty string here is a string, and this L is a string. So what we can also kind of do here is that we can set space, oops, between empty string, and we can put in space, oops, if I can type today. and that gets us the same kind of thing. Put F plus space and plus L gets us a string, space between the two. The last one here is, what code can we write to output the string last first, last first? Well, we can do L plus. I don't want to type in space, so we're just going to shorten this up.
This makes sense. Anybody like curious about any of the
S
operators to use?
plus F plus S plus L plus F. I may be wrong. Oh, I'm missing an S in there. And we do last first, last first. So that's kind of the basics using string concatenation. So can have a volunteer to Slack me their results for using string interpolation. And we're going to go over one of your homeworks.
Yeah. The ternary operators, I believe it's called. Yeah, so all that's saying, like, this isn't, basically what this is saying is, before the question mark, like, the one that has a space.
Well, you can just send me a direct message with your solution for using string interpolation for the first and last.
Before the colon, right? So, if it's false,
So Chris here's put in the Slack channel, puts F capitalized. Yep, that's exactly right. So to show that in action,
that makes sense.
String concatenation is one technique in order to kind of print out to the screen multiple variables, and interpolation is the other. Personally, I kind of prefer interpolation because I feel it's a little easier to read, especially if you have other text. So we can do puts in double quotes.
Okay, so a couple of things. Have you actually run this one, Simon? Does it output an order? Because I'm reading through this and I sort of feel like it would output all the numbers.
Oops, put a little slash there, but that works. And it makes things a little easier to handle because we're just building a string, and whenever it's in the the hash symbol and the squiggly braces is the variable that we want to print out. So to put in a space, we could just do this instead of doing something like this will give us first space last. But we can just put in the space like this. Another reason why I kind of like interpolation better is that it's a lot easier to kind of build strings and build output. So we can do something like the text I want is
Yeah, okay. So that's
Asher wants to know if when we do homework in Atom and save as a file so we can submit or share the answers, do everything in IRB. Yeah, generally save it, so it's something we'll often have these sessions when we recap homework, we'll ask you to share the answers. Generally save everything you do because it's kind of also kind of neat to go back in a couple weeks and look like this is where you started.
yeah, so like
So let's move on to names.
Does anybody else see?
So name one is Megan Smith. Name two is Todd Park. So we have two names separated by space in these two variables.
Oh, okay. So it's my correct.
And we're looking at two ways to output the fragment Megan from name
Yeah,
one.
it's not actually in the instructions.
The first way, I'm going to show you one way, and I'd like you to send me your other way, is I'm going to put. One of the interesting things about strings is that they do have kind of array-like properties.
But if Mike says
Chris, I'm going to answer your question in a second. So name, if we do puts name underscore one. We get the entire name, but we don't want the entire name. What we do is that we just want the first one. So here's kind of something cool. We can put name one and we give an index of 0. What do you think that would give us? You know, thinking that 0 is the first item in the array, in the string, it will just give us the M, but we don't want just the M. We want the E, the G, the A, and the N as well. So we can actually give a range in here. 0.4. So it's 0.4 because I know that M is 0, E is 1, G is 2, A is 3, N is 4. So I want to display everything starting at 0 and moving to 4. So now, when we run this, it just gives us Megan. So to answer Chris's question, how would you use in using Atom? So I'm just going to open up Atom here. And usually what the general workflow with Atom is that we have Atom take up the top 2/3 of your screen and the terminal the bottom 2/3. So let me set this up and I'll share my screen for you.
All right, how about updates?
So I figure out how to share my entire. Oops, that's not what I want to do.
I was actually so busy.
Okay.
I guess all of those are technically. Okay, yeah, so did you just do G-sub like for every letter in the alphabet?
Yep. Okay, so what I've done here is, let me close this out here because that's not what I want. So I've essentially, what I've done here is I've replicated the kind of layout I had using my own other text editor with this here. So I've set it up so I have Atom up top and I have the command line below. So using Atom is kind of the preferred workflow. So we were just saying that we've come up with one way to output to just a fragment Megan from name one. Can someone send me through direct message another way that they've done this, not using the range in the range not thing? Okay, so Jennifer just gave me this solution here. And what we've done here is that we've split on the spaces and called the first item. So let's kind of break this down into different, into what this actually does. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to use pry, which is kind of like IRB, which you may have used in your pre-work. Let me make this a little bigger so you can see.
Is anybody confused by that solution?
So we're going to set name underscore 1. Right, so we've got name 1, we've set to Megan Smith. And what we're doing here is that we're using split. And what split does is that by default, it takes whatever your string is and it creates an array of each item separated by the spaces. So now instead of a string, we have an array where the first item in the array is the string Megan, and the second item in the array is the last name Smith. So now that we have that, we just want the first one, so we can do as Jennifer did, name 1 split 0 to give us Megan, or as Genevieve put in the channel, another way we can reference the first item in an array is not first. And that gives us the same exact thing. So style-wise, the 0 makes sense, the first makes sense. You can use either one. I personally prefer first because it's more Englishy to me, and it's something I feel it's more readable. A lot of the stuff is going to be, personal preference. So let's move on to the next one. We want to get Todd from name 2. Well, as we've discussed, splitting it on the array and grabbing the first one will work for Todd. But if I were to do this, we're name 2, 4. What will this get me? Will this get me the right answer? Will I get Todd, and just Todd from doing this?
Let's see where this is going. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at your code. I am not.
Right. So what happens?
Right. So it only works because there's two
is that we get the space. It's you can't really see it because we can't really tell if there's a space at the end of it. So let's do this. So Todd's supposed to be 4 letters. So let's see if we can inspect 1. Yeah. So inspect is kind of a developer view in Ruby, and you can still inspect onto a lot of things and it'll give you a better view. So you can see that without putting inspect on it, we see Todd, but we don't know if it has that extra space. But when we throw inspect on it and run it again, it'll put the string inside the quotes for us, so we can see that it has an unintended extra space. So that approach won't work. However, if we go back to our old approach, not the old approach, the other approach, where we do name 2.split.first, and we run that, you get Todd, but just to make sure, we can do inspect at the end of this, and we can see that it is Todd without the extra trailing space. One thing to note is that I saw in some of your answers that you sent me, some of you had put in this, something like this, and this is perfectly fine. It gives the same exact answer. It's just that split by default is it splits on spaces. So by default, you don't have to actually include that. Okay, so we've got a couple minutes left, so let's just go through integers really quickly. We have integers. 65, C equals 31, C equals 98. So the average. Does it mean you can explain the split elsewhere? Yes, you could. A good example is, yes, you can assign it to all R's. You can split on commas.
And so now
like anything you want. To get the average of this, I would do puts plus P plus C plus T by 4. $51? Is that right? I'm not very good at math right now. I've only had one cup of coffee, but it seems plausible.
So for each white space is an index, right? So that's what we call it.
Was there one about initials? Yeah, let's go back to the initials after we finish that.
And then I'm going to set sort of like that.
Let's see what this gives us. That gives us 32, and the reason for that is the order of operations. Always use parentheses. I like to explicitly use parentheses because there is an order of operations. I don't remember what order of operations was. That was grammar school a much long time ago, so I do expect to forget that. So I always kind of explicitly put parentheses around things, as you just saw. So, but going back to what you said about parentheses, I mean, not parentheses, initials. So we want to grab, we can use what Link suggested by grabbing, Chris suggested by grabbing just the initials, but that's not really kind of, when we're running code, we want to make sure that code will work for anything we can throw at it. So what we can do is, we can say the first initial. And how do we grab the first initial? Well, we get name. We can split it and grab the first. Now, name.split.first, that should give us Todd. So in any string, given that, how do we get the first initial? We can do 0 here, and that should give us the T. And then we'll do last initial equals name.split.last. And to grab the first initial, we also use 0, the first letter, 0. So we can do puts first initial and that gives the TP. Yeah, order of operations, I think it was PEMDAS, wasn't it? Was the mnemonic for initials? So in the few minutes we have left, does anyone have any questions about this exercise?
That's a little bit more general solution.
Or is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to take a look at?
All right, let's do a 5-minute break. We'll call it 7 minutes to go over the numbers. You guys look at the calendar. We're going to be doing strings and integers. It's going to in about 7 minutes, we'll do a little kickoff. We'll sort of go on the rails, but then it's going to be a lot of self-work as I go after all. And I'll just hang out on Slack and help you guys with questions. So, see you guys in about 7 minutes.
I see typing.
Yes.
This is posted in the Slack channel and also on the calendar. The happy birthday, I would probably use a loop to do that. What I'll probably do is that while you're in the flow control class, I'll come up with solutions for happy birthday and string compression, and I'll post that in your channel. Or you can just Slack me your code, and I can make comments to it on it for you. Okay, we have time for one more question. Okay, looks like you guys want to see the birthday. I'll definitely have that done. But like I said, I'll show you one approach. Just not saying that my approach I'm taking to solving it is going to be the correct approach. It could very well, you could have your solutions are probably equally as valid. But we are out of time. So Horse is posted this the next hangout you'll be bouncing to, and we'll be talking to you about your afternoon activities later today. Again, feel free to Slack me your code if you want direct comments on anything you've done. Be more than happy to do that for you.
Yeah, you're still kind of breaking up.
Go forth and enjoy your code.
And I'll see if I can figure out what you did differently. You should be able to just like, if you paste the whole thing into Slack, it'll be like, you're gonna split